content for you in this episode. I'm going to start off with some relevant news articles, get into what we've done lately for our own preps, then we're going to get into the main topic, what if and how to get in or get out. So we'll move into the news.
I just thought I'd throw this interesting blurb in there. Montreal is now the latest city to start banning fossil fuel appliances. So as of October of next year, any new builds under 3 stories in Montreal, you will not be allowed any fossil fuel burning appliances. So no gas stoves, no propane stoves, no hot water heaters that are gas or propane, no, let me see here. Let me just read it here. Is ruling out all natural gas, oil, and propane as an option for heating and cooking in all newly constructed buildings as part of the new bylaw.
Electric propane, only?
Yep. Wow. Propane, natural gas, and heating oil all fall under the new bans. It does say there are a couple of minor exemptions, which is kind of stupid. I mean, they specifically list things like water heaters, hot tubs. So heat pumps for hot tubs and pools have to be electric. They can't be gas anymore. They can't be propane. You can have a barbecue, but your barbecue cannot be hooked up directly to your gas system. It must have its own tank. Yeah, stupid as that sounds. Other exemptions, it says it includes outdoor or temporary heaters for construction, generators, which is a smart thing finally. I know in New York they said no generators weren't even allowed to be gas operated. So, and of course, commercial use of professional stoves. So I guess if you're a professional cook like me, you can have a professional stove. So that would be my way around it.
There's your exemption.
Yeah, it says outdoor barbecues with tanks are exempt. However, those hooked up to the propane network or natural gas will be banned. So they're not the only ones, as I say. I know New York's done it. I believe Vancouver has some sort of a modified way of that. It's not as restrictive as what Montreal's throwing out there, but I guess like anything with politicians, guaranteed they never ran on that policy in their platform when they ran for election. So anyways,
I don't even know what to say. That's
speechless. I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Wow. Because the electric grid is so reliable already.
Well, exactly. That's the whole thing. You want to add in all these electric cars. Now you want to add in all of this electric stuff. I mean, I don't know if anybody was paying attention, but Trudeau last week gave an exemption to the
himself. What?
Yeah, I wish. On paying the tax on, I believe it was heating oil for the Maritimes, only the Maritimes.
That's right.
For 3 years, by telling them, this is your opportunity to get off of oil. I'm going to give you a discount. I want you to take that money and buy a heat pump and get yourself off of oil, because in 3 years, the tax exemption's gone and you're not going to be able to afford your oil, is basically what he's saying. So, they're just, of course, because the Maritimes are turning against the Liberal Party and they need votes. So that's all it's about. We all know that. So anyways, I'm done. I'm going to get myself in trouble.
We'll forward the rest of the thoughts to Monday night to the other CPP.
Yeah.
I would say we're already all on a kind of list, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
You're not on a list. You're not doing it right.
Nicely.
All right. With that, let's move into what we've done lately for preps, and we'll let Jeff continue the rant.
Not a lot. I've had one thing, and it's kind of taken up a bunch of my time. My wood supplier contacted me out of the blue, and he's like, I'm doing a local job. You want a bunch of wood? So I've got myself a few trailer loads of logs. I've been cutting and splitting. He just sent me a text this afternoon. Hey, I'm going back Monday and Tuesday if you want more. So I'm never going to turn it down. But I just
Nope.
not sure where I'm going to put it. But that'll be my stuff for the next week or so.
Yeah, I can't say no, right? Price is
Exactly.
right, I'd imagine. So
Yep.
I can't
for
turn
myself, worked on the backup generator to the main backup generator because it's always better to have a backup for the backup. So just got the oil changed in it, fired it up, did a quick load test, make sure that it's working and it's ready to jump into action should the main generator fail or not operate, or I just need a smaller one for something. Besides that, it's been a heck of a busy week.
It's been that kind of week for me too. Working long hours at the new gig, but I'm loving every minute of it. So I managed, however, to go retrieve my lithium phosphate battery pack from my friend Nagal's property, so I can work on it from the comfort of this nice on the grid home during my weekends off. And I'm starting to work on a new work-related EDC kit, so there'll be a little bit more on that coming up down the road.
Nice.
Probably a separate video. Yeah.
Very nice.
Something that all of you who spend time in a vehicle at any point in your day or in your commute might want to consider.
Interesting. Well, we'll have to definitely dedicate an episode to that because I think a few of us on the panel spend significant periods of time in vehicles. So
Exactly
fun
what I
one.
was thinking. So that could be quite useful
be a
for
fun
many
one.
of us. It'll be
very
fun.
nice. All right. Well, with that, let's move into our main topic. And tonight, as the show title kind of touches on, duck and cover, dodge and weave, bug in, bug out, whatever it is you want to call it. We figured we'd go back to some basics and talk about making some decisions to stay put, get out, how you would do it, how you go about it, and just kind of chat about the classic prepper thought of what do I do, when do I do it, how do I do it, and why. This should be a fun episode.
I think it will be.
Does everybody have their rye?
I'm drinking plain water tonight, unfortunately. Man,
well, if anybody asks, it's vodka.
Oh, enjoy. Yes, okay. We'll call it Grey
Caesar.
Goose, maybe. Grey Goose is nice.
There we go.
So there's this big decision, right? It's all coming.
Yep.
It's hitting you. You don't know what to do, right? So bug in or bug out. And lots of people have discussed this at length, so I'm not going to rehash bug in versus bug out, except to keep it to a point of if you bug in, you have to worry about, of course, all of your safety and security and supplies. But it's what do you do when you run out or are overrun? Because in any of those situations, you're going to have to face the choice of, crap, do we still bug in or do we bug out? All right. Do we pull the pin? All right. Or as we said back when I wore green, do we pull pole? Pull pole means you're gone, right? Everything is gone, right? Pull pin had a very different connotation for us in my trade.
Sure did.
So that's the only thing I'm going to say about bug in versus bug out.
And I'll rewind for 1 second and just mention the fact that you know that something's coming your way already and you're at this stage of being able to say, am I staying or am I going? You've already done something right because you know.
Oh yeah,
right?
Good point.
A lot of people aren't even going to know something's coming. So
and that's a really, really good point. And there's in fact a little something of that in my notes where I talk about being prepared ahead of time. And this is when preppers are usually ahead because they've thought of some of those things that we've just discussed really quickly. So even if you've thought about it, and I talk about this to folks who are in my MAGs, my mutual assistance groups, for those of you who are new to Prepper Speak. And I was fairly new to Prepper Speak too, until I was reminded that I am a prepper. So
everyone's got to start somewhere, right? Everyone's always a beginner at some point.
I may as well run with the lingo. But preparedness starts in your mind. And I talk a lot about this with my people. So even if you don't have money, you can go on YouTube if you've got access to a cell phone. And a lot of people who can't have internet at home because it's too expensive, they might always still have their cell phone. So if all you've got is a cell phone, and even if you don't have enough data, you might be able to wind your way over to a fast food place like a McDonald's or a Tim Hortons. And if you can stomach the attacks on your privacy of going onto an open Wi-Fi network,
Please put a VPN on. Put a VPN
yes.
on.
If you're going to go do this, do at least get yourself a VPN. If you're limited in funds, again, you can buy just a little bit of time of VPN. Just 1 month worth of VPN time is really inexpensive. And there's all kinds of ways to do this. And a little bit of extra security when you're on those public networks, it's really necessary. It's like wearing a condom when you're playing with unknown people. That's really what it's about.
I was thinking it. You said it. Yep.
I had to. So that being said, if you've got access to the web, you can go online and you can search on any prepper topic you can imagine. And it's out there. And YouTube has it all. I mean, it's really amazing. They won't show you really cool little details like modifications to firearms or even maintenance you can do to firearms anymore. They're plugging and blocking all of that, taking things apart. So you might have to ask a friend or go looking around or look through the archives. There's ways.
We might be blocked now just for saying the word firearm.
I did use a keyword there, so I'm afraid
did, yep.
Yeah, you've all joined us. You've joined us in our realm.
See us next week on tour.
That's right. On Rumble, or no, maybe even BitChute. So
sure, we can go ClearNet. Why not? That's fine. Be boring.
Right,
ClearNet, whatever.
Yeah, I have a friend who's on BitChute, and he's doing well. So, thinking about preparedness, you can find a lot of specific topics online on how to prep. If it starts by having stuff you have on you, I think this is a good start. So, EDC, everyday carry, these are things that are good to think about.
Absolutely. Basics, right?
Yeah, the basics. I'm sure we have a few episodes on this podcast about EDC, do we not?
1, 2, or 10. Yep.
Right on. That's what we wouldn't call ourselves preppers without having EDC on our mind.
No.
So I won't go on about it forever either, but EDC is a thing. There's great videos. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You can do $25 and you can do an EDC kit from the dollar store. And you can get started that way. Fire making, man, I could go on for days, but again, lots of stuff out there on fire making. You got little kits. I may one day, offer such things as a fire making kit, but that's one thing you can put together for yourself if you want to take the time to do. Practice making fires with your fire kit if you're going to do that. Sleep systems. If you're going to bug in or bug out, you might want to think about sleep systems, ways to ensure that you can sleep on the go, even if it's in compact ways. Right here we have somebody who's mentioned, looks like we have a ham operator.
Ham operator, yep.
And talking about Proton VPN. And yes, Proton VPN is a good service. Definitely would recommend them. Yep. I myself use Mulvad, and I think they're quite good.
They specifically mentioned Proton offers a free use VPN, and they're a reputable company that is not stealing your data because you're using it for free, because they do also offer a paid tier. So definitely worthwhile. Yep.
Where are they based out of?
So they are out of Switzerland, if I remember correctly.
Are these the Proton Mail folks?
Yes, same people. Yep.
And I would probably venture to say their stuff is pretty good.
Yeah.
No, not having used them, they have a very good reputation.
Oh yes, they're huge on privacy.
Yeah, very good reputation.
Yeah.
So
confirmation they're Switzerland.
They are Switzerland. Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Thank you for that. So yes, practice good, safe searching habits when you're out there doing all of this looking around. So there's all kinds of big things about bugging in, bugging out, and preparing, but I've kind of distilled it to 5 big things, and I think I can share them with you all because there's just 5 of them. It's really simple, and you can cover a lot of ground with these 5 general ways of summing things up.
And we're spending an hour on each one, right?
An hour on each one? Fantastic. Get ready, brace yourselves.
Here we go. Like I said, get the rye. Yep.
Oh yeah, here we are. What do we got?
So Rock and Ryan basically he mentions I guess it's some preppers that he follows called Battle Box. They test gear out so you're not wasting your money on garbage gear. And I was kind of gonna say, when Gunny said, looking at YouTube and doing stuff like that, that's great. I've learned a lot of stuff from that, but I've also found some stuff that is basically snake oil, if you want to put it in a polite way. So do take what you see with a little grain of salt. Know who, try to find out, who's the reputable people, reputable websites, that kind of stuff that aren't in it to try to suck you in to buy their stuff and are constantly fear mongering, wanting you to buy their stuff because the world's about to end and stuff like that. Most of the people out there are good, honest people, and they really want to help. But there's also those unsavory ones out there too. So that you just have to be aware of.
Let's take a moment here to absolutely underscore that. If somebody's fear mongering and they're then offering you something that you can buy through them, right away, that should get your hackles up. I'm just saying.
Absolutely.
Right.
There's a reason they're fear mongering.
There's a reason they got you in fear, right? So there is that Canadian guy out there. He says he's Canadian anyway, and he's fear mongering all over, and I'm not into that. No. I'm into cool, calm reflection, because when you're afraid, when you're scared, you're not thinking straight. No. So let's think straight, right? If you are going out there and testing your own gear from something you see on YouTube, test it, try it out, but do it safely. I'm hearing stories about people going off into the bush with their families to go off the grid, and they have never done it or tried it before. Man, you don't move your entire family off the grid. You try it a little bit at a time. You go for a walk in the woods for an hour. Can you handle a walk in the woods for an hour? Some people can't.
You'd be surprised at what you'll learn in an hour walking in the woods.
Exactly. Try a few days, right? But don't try it right away, folks. You're gonna be pushing yourselves, unless you really enjoy pushing yourselves and getting into risky situations. Man, there's a lot easier ways to learn, and taking it in small steps is what I'd recommend. So please don't take anything we're talking about here today and go to the extreme. That's where people go wrong.
Remember, times are still good. So now is the time to practice and kind of build yourself up. Don't jump into tomorrow being like, I'm just going to do this scenario like shit hit the fan and I'm going full bore. Yeah. It's not the way to do it. It's like building up fitness levels, right? You don't jump right into doing a marathon. You slowly build your way into it, right? Same thing with preparedness.
Absolutely.
Slow and methodical.
Yeah. Slow and easy wins the race, folks. So item number 1 that I've got down for everyone to consider is, if you don't already have it on hand and it's all going haywire out there, you may have to fight for it or trade for it, right? Or make it. Man, if you can make it, wow, cool. You're off in another different dimension and place of being. And now you've got a skill set that you can translate to others. But just remember, if you can make it, how are you making it? What are you making it with? Do you need electricity? Do you need gas? Do you need fuel? Do you need wood? Do you need consumables? Where are those consumables coming from? Right? Where are the things you need to maintain the tools that you use to make those things? Right? Think about that, because during these kinds of times, if you don't have it on hand, man, you're now back to what we just said. You either have to fight for it or trade for it in order to get it, so you can do what you do best. Right? So if you don't have it already, you may have to fight or trade for it. So what can you do to prepare for that?
And then I just Gunnar, I just wanted to jump in.
Yeah, no, please go.
When you say that you either have to fight or trade for it, now you're taking yourself out of what we call the gray man thing. Now you're going out into the public, you're exposing yourself, you're kind of telling people, I don't have this and I'm looking for it. And then if you've got something and you're willing to trade, and it's something that maybe other people want, and that certain person starts chirping, then all of a sudden everybody knows that, hey, you've got X that I want,
Mhm.
and they're going to come looking for you.
This is
Great
a
points.
really good point, Jeff. A lot of people networks in areas under occupation in our recent history, not just on this continent, but outside of this continent. There have been pressures from without, from enemy forces who are occupying and enemy forces who are occupying always need food. They always need supplies themselves, and their supply chains might be long, and they might be getting attacked from other forces. And so any smart military, whether they're unorganized or half organized or just a band of nut bars, they're all going to need food and supplies, which means they're coming after those that they can see and get their hands on. And so Jeff is absolutely right, and that's a big one. Keeping a low profile. If you don't have it on hand and you have to go looking for it, man, that's hairy. That's really hairy, and you may end up having to fight. So great point. The next one I have down is another big one. If you've ever lived in isolation but had a few people you could rely on, it's a network of people that you can rely on. Trusted people. And I mean, really trusted, because in times of duck and cover, man, history tells us that we're not always off to a good start, are we?
No. And this is one that you definitely can't do overnight. This whole building up a group of people you can trust and like actually trust takes years to build.
Years.
And it's one that I find people try to dive into really quickly, and they go, oh yeah, I'm just gonna find a bunch of people that are like-minded and we're just gonna go at this. That's great, but it takes years to build up that trust, get the personalities kind of working together, because you're gonna have those clashes in the group. Not that it's a bad thing, right? Sometimes that actually is a good thing that the personalities clash, right? But it takes a lot of time to get that group dynamic built up and get everybody kind of flowing in the same direction with the same mindset. And it can be done, but it's a tricky thing to build, and you're not doing that overnight.
I have to agree 100%. Amongst a lot of the preppers that I've met, in my circle, I happened to meet a lot of people who were either first responders or ex-military, or combination of both. And that's possibly because we have similar mindsets, similar approaches, not the same, but similar.
Yep.
A lot of things in common in those approaches. And so we're able to have and establish a common culture very quickly in the group. And so you tend to see a lot of ex-military or ex-service, either police, law enforcement. I have friends who are paramedic. In one case, he's been invaluable because he also has military experience. So when you've got a lot of cross experience, if you got somebody who's military and then maybe transitioned over into a first responder domain, whether police, whether medic, whether even hospital side, man, there's a whole ton of really good people out there that tend to gravitate to one another just as they do. So
Yep. And I was going to say along the line of, like I say, like you said, Gunny, the first responders in that, I not that I tend to gravitate to them, but they see a different side of society that the rest of us don't. And they understand the limitations of, most people out there figure, okay, something goes wrong, I'm just going to call 911 and somebody is going to come and help me. And those people on the inside know that that's probably not going to happen. Let's call a spade a spade. It's not going to happen. Their resources are not finite. The number of people they have available is not finite. They're going to deal with the big issues first. And you may think your issue is big, but to them, it's probably not. And, they've seen the other side, and they realize that help isn't going to come when you think it's going to come.
Yeah.
And one of the
Unfortunate
ones
but
I
true.
think, I think, Jeff, that one of the ones that that immediately stands to my mind that I think a lot of Canadians and probably Americans can relate to, I'm sure everywhere in the world really, is the medical side. You know,
Mhm.
when you call for an ambulance and you're thinking, okay, you know, I'm hurt, you're immediately put into what we call triage from the dispatch side. And there's a triage that occurs on the dispatcher side. And what they're doing is they're looking at what your Bobo is, and they're comparing it to all the other Bobos that have just been reported in the last 3 hours. And they've got to assign it to a limited and finite amount of ambulances and paramedics on those ambulances. And they can't be on there for longer than so many hours without those poor people burning out and starting to, you know, have human error, which is a real thing when you're exhausted and your personnel are completely wiped out. So absolutely, all those people calling 911 at once, they all want that help right away. And man, it's the same if you go to the hospital. You know, you go to the hospital for something minor, you're going to be in triage against a whole bunch of other people who are probably going to come ahead of you depending on what the severity of what you have is. So we come back to having those trusted networks of people. You know, can you call a friend who will help you out, who will give you some help on the phone?
Yep. Joan's got a good point in the live chat here. Just talking about taking years to build that group up. Sadly, she says too many people move around these days. For example, a military neighbor just moved away. Could be a con, could be a pro, because now you've got somewhere to go, depending on how far they are and how reasonable it is for you to be able to make that trip. But you've also got somebody in a new environment that's going to learn new things that can then funnel that back to you. So keeping that communication open could be quite useful to you, even if they are a considerable distance away. You can still learn from them and maybe pick up some new things from a new environment that they're in.
Absolutely. Mobile people, and these days I'm in a mobile profession, so you get to see things from a different point of view, and you get to contact and locate a lot of things too, right? I know friends who are on the road a lot. They're truckers, and man, they can tell you where the best spots are to find water, where to find food at the oddest times, where to find fuel, right?
And where not to go.
And where not to go, most importantly. Yes, those networks of people, man, they've helped me immensely when I was up north. For my year up there off the grid, I had to deal with so many different questions of different kinds, and they all had to do with, how do I do that up here? Where do I find that up here? And so it was my little network of people that I quickly built up that was invaluable to me. So but let's talk quickly about that. Nurturing a network of people means that you also have to offer them something too, right? You have to be able to support them and be there for them when they need you as well. So it's not just, I know people like the social media stuff, you know, this thing they do. Oh, I know somebody, right? Oh, I have a friend in this town. Have you heard a lot of people say this?
I know somebody because they're my friend on the Book of Faces.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then when it comes down to it, okay, well, I need a ride, or, you know, I'm stuck here, and ghost.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. Don't build your network of people based on that, folks.
Yep.
Interpersonal relationships is what it's got to come back down to. Right.
Yep.
And here I'm noticing a comment from one of my close friends, Mark. He's talking about dogs. How many of you have dogs here on the channel or listening in? This is a big one, man. So many people I know have dogs. My little lady here has dogs. And a lot of people have them. What do you think of how to prepare for them? In shortages, usually it's those that we think of the least that suffer the most. So, what about our pets? What about your dogs? Let's quickly dive into that, because He's a dear
And
friend, and he takes really good care of the dogs that he has on hand and with him. These
And on
are
a
good friends
side
of
note, I saw that comment. I did a quick intern check, and we did an episode on this, episode 41. We talked specifically about dogs.
Oh,
So that was a listener request. Now that's going back a little ways into the catalog. I cannot guarantee that the audio is all that great, or we're still learning, and we still are, even in episode 220. But yeah, episode 41,
okay.
we were learning a lot still. But
Well, if that's
did do
from
an
way
episode
back
on
in
it.
41, maybe that's another topic we maybe
revisit.
want to delve into again.
I
at some
would be
point.
interested in addressing that at some point, because a lot of friends I know have picked up dogs over the years, and it's an everyday part of their life. How do you prepare
Yeah.
for them in this kind of situation, right?
Yeah, and it's something that's
and-
often overlooked.
Yep.
Yeah,
And he
very
makes
much.
the comment as well, Gunny. He says, dogs are such good protectors and guards. So I will always be with 1, 2, or 3. Absolutely
truly
right.
are.
I mean, where we have fear and we get that fight or flight kind of scenario, dogs don't get that.
No.
If they sense danger, they're going to fight.
Yeah, their instincts are strong.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do admire them for that. I keep getting impressed with dogs. I didn't grow up with them, but they love me for some reason. I don't know why, but I have a hard time not loving back a critter that loves me so deeply. So, I tend to fall in love with other people's dogs, and it's a funny thing, but I think they are great guards. My little lady's dogs, man, they let her know when somebody's showing up unannounced. We know.
We'll revisit the topic.
Yeah, this is a really cool future topic. I like this.
And then another comment I liked from Jeff Locke there. He says, use your resources, families and friends,
Yes.
but be aware. And I can say from my personal experience that, sometimes your family thinks you're crazy and they don't always agree with, because they get into the whole, oh, you're the end of the world type person. No, I'm not. But when my power goes out for 7 days, I don't want to be concerned about how I'm going to feed myself and how I'm going to stay warm and how I'm going to. That's what I'm into. You know what? If it's the end of the world, we're all done anyway. So,
It's a good point.
Yeah, I find sometimes families are not always. Sometimes they are, but I find for the most part, sometimes they're not always the best people. If I can kind of say that out loud.
Somebody has to, and I have to agree. When you are a prepper, and again, I was one, I am one, and I never called myself one, and all of a sudden this big thing exploded called the pandemic. And I'll just leave it at that, because I could go on for days about that one, but that's another podcast. What I found is that a whole lot of people who used to put me in that marginal space, oh, he's kind of nuts, all of a sudden we're thinking, man, I want to follow you.
Funny how that happens, isn't it?
Right? Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
But then if you're anything like me at that point, you're thinking, yeah, but I don't want all you behind me, man. I want you like farther over there, so nobody's looking at me. The reason I am still the way I am is because I ensure that I try to keep a low profile. I keep quiet. I don't want to be seen. So,
And there you go, Jeff. I fixed your tagline for you. You're now not crazy.
Oh,
Jeff's not crazy. He's of sound
I'm not
mind.
crazy. However,
what-
Joan says she likes being the crazy lady, so
Yeah, hey,
there's nothing wrong with being crazy.
That. No. Mm-mm.
Well, Joan, do you know what I like to tell people? I'm not crazy. I'm ultra sane.
I like it.
They don't like that when I say that. And the other thing I love saying is they call you crazy when they can't say you're wrong. So hang on to that.
Denny's got a good point in the live chat too. He says sometimes your family can be your biggest disadvantage. Right? So depends on your situation, right? it really depends on how things are socially with your family and even your friend group. So 100%, it could be beneficial, it could be big disadvantage.
I tend to agree
all
with
depends.
Denny. Just look at what happens when an execution of a will occurs, right? When somebody has to go ahead and take care of that will, man, it's
Oh yeah.
I won't even get into it. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
I think we've all heard horror stories, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm almost feeling icky.
You know.
However, I also like Jeff Scott had the other Jeff has a bunch of good comments, and he basically said if people think you're crazy, they tend to stay away from you.
Yeah,
Beautiful. Stay away
Yeah.
from me. That's fine. I got no issue with that.
that's right. They failed the psych test.
Yep. Yep.
Yep.
This is true. This is true.
Very cool. Very cool.
Oh.
Wow, I think we've kind of hammered the networks of people thing pretty well, haven't we?
I think so. Yep.
Yep.
And if you want to dive further down that rabbit hole, we've done a few episodes on it. So
Yeah, that's a very good one. Now
I'm sure there'll be future ones as well.
now how's this for a really apt segue, bud? So with all these people that you're supposed to meet in face to face and get to know well, you're gonna need to talk about and deal with number three
Mhm.
thing that you have to consider, and that is how to travel and communicate. So you want to establish routes of travel and methods of communication. That is probably going to be your biggest challenge in this day and age. And that's because so many of us are now reliant on cell phones or the internet,
It's true.
and or both, right?
Mhm.
And like almost crippled by that reliance, right?
Yes.
The knowledge of doing anything else has almost completely disappeared, right? Which is great. When the
Sure.
internet's working, it is incredibly effective communication tool.
100%.
But if it
Can't disagree.
disappears,
Ah,
now what?
yeah.
Right? Or those cell towers go down. We saw that with the Rogers outage. What was that, about a year or so ago now?
About a year ago.
Everything crawled to a halt.
I
Nobody could do
believe that
anything, right?
I believe, Eric, we were off the grid at that point, and so we didn't even know what was going on. And I know from my point of view, we came back into quote unquote civilization where the cell phones worked, and all of a sudden there's like 150 notifications on the phone, and people are just freaking out because
Yep.
there was just an internet outage, and it was almost to them like the world was coming to an end.
Whereas,
The reliance on the internet with all of its apps and the convenience of the cell phones, man, it's destroyed a lot of people's ability to communicate in the old-fashioned manner. Have you noticed how, just walking into a store and needing help from an associate, you notice they just call them associates now,
Mhm.
right? Not salespeople, because we're not expecting them to be able to sell anything to you. They're just associates, so they're like associated with the store.
You'd have to talk to
Um,
someone in order to sell them something.
That's right. So it's I've found that the level of service in just about every retail environment I've
Yep.
been into, except a few rare exceptions, they're still out there. It's really suffered, hasn't it? So
Huge.
Well, I tend to think, and I may take some heat for this, but that's okay. I think that the whole internet thing and the whole, while it's got some great parts to it,
Mm.
it has stopped people from being or having the ability to think for themselves. Oh, well, what does Google think about this? And what does Facebook think about that? Think for
Yep.
yourself. Hello, you got
Oh.
something between your ears,
Yep. Yeah, it's a cell phone.
you've got a great point, Jeff. I remember having to look things up in books.
Yep.
Yeah, books. Remember those? Yeah,
Mhm.
books.
Sure do.
So let's
And I
talk
mean,
about.
don't get me wrong. The internet's a great thing. When I
It
picked up
is.
that broken generator, yeah, I went on to YouTube and figured out what I needed and how to do this and how to do that. And once I've done it now the first time. Now I know how to do it. I can do it. So it has its good points, but you still have to be able to function and think for yourself and be able to not rely on that to do what you need to get done.
Good point. This is probably the first time in our history, well, maybe not the first time it's been this dramatic, but the first time in my history where a tool we're given truly alters the way we think. And that's access to a computer. It has really changed the way people think. And it's now manifesting itself in many, many different ways. So to communicate with people, you're going to have to meet up with them. And in order to meet up with them, you're going to want to do it in a secure way. And so that means you can't use the internet and you can't use your cell phone anymore. So what do? I think we could do an entire episode just on this.
Oh, yeah, we can.
Because, in fact, I would say that there are entire courses that last months on end for people in very, very specialized trades, such as intelligence operators, who deal with the techniques that we're about to make reference to, right? So we're talking about here is using maps, not making any records of what you're doing on those maps. So you don't mark up those maps. You meet with people in person with those maps and you show them the locations that you agree to meet. You scout out those locations first before you meet. You check them for random times and dates to see what kind of patterns of activity are around there so that you know what you're working with. And only then do you agree to use that location. If and when you do agree to use that location, you never reference to it by its address or its actual location. You give it a code word, and you only use those code words. And if you want to get really ultra secure, you can change the code words you use when you communicate about those places so that it is another layer of security beyond that. And we could go on for days about old tradecraft techniques, and I don't want to get into it because, again, that's an entire different topic. And man, there are way more intelligent people than me who've covered all that stuff, but I'm fascinated by it. And you should be too, if you're interested in figuring out ways to keep tabs on your people and move about to meet up with your people under these kinds of circumstances.
And on that, at least from my perspective, you made the comment of established routes of travel, but also have a secondary route of travel if that original route maybe takes you on a road that is blocked, maybe has roadblocks, maybe there's another way, or you've had a natural disaster. Say you've had a flood and that road is washed out and you can't get through there anymore. You need to have a secondary way to get to where you need to get to. It especially I'm thinking more of vehicular traffic as opposed to different ways like on foot or maybe with a snowmobile if it's in the winter, or a dirt bike or something like that, where you can just you know what, I need to get here. Well, I can go through the ditch and I can weave through the woods and I can get there. But if you don't have those options and you're stuck to the normal method of travel, which is a paved road or a dirt road or a road, now you're into the you're into a bit of an issue. So Phil makes a good comment in the live chat there. He says, do an area study of your current network and your bug out location before it happens. Absolutely.
Agreed.
Test your stuff before shit hits the fan.
100%. Everything I just mentioned, you should definitely be doing way before anything big occurs. You should have this already now if you can. And like Jeff says, man, that's a huge one. You can't just rely on one route. Make sure you have a backup. Make sure you have alternates. And that's not enough. Make sure you've got another plan. And if you can make another plan after that, a plan Delta, and then a plan Echo, and then a plan Foxtrot, well, you do that. Because when it really goes bad, you just need to have at least thought out a few different places and have those alternate locations and alternate means of deciding on them really quickly. You won't have time to discuss.
It's
You
true.
might have to break protocol and contact someone through an insecure means, and over that insecure means of comms, you might have to use a code word. And if you've pre-agreed that these code words are to be used once and once only, that's fine. That's great. In fact, it's fantastic because you've now burned one of those code words and you've now implemented part of your protocol and you now have communicated something, right? So, but absolutely, you should have those backups. It's not sufficient to have one route. A lot of places that I like to go to, there's only one way in. And so if that's the case, then it's upon me to find out ways to dismount my vehicle and then go on foot. And so you have to be prepared to do that if you don't want to be marooned or subject to somebody else's whims.
So John in the live chat here mentions, I wish I had a bug out location. So maybe we'll touch on this and expand on it just a little bit.
I think so. Yeah,
because
that's a good.
This is one that I see people get hung up on all the time.
Yeah.
I don't have a big elaborate cabin in the middle of nowhere to use as a bug out location. And that's what everybody envisions. And that's probably the gold standard of a bug out location. If we had the ability to have that, that'd be fantastic.
I agree.
You
Yeah.
don't need to have that level for a bug out location. Right? It could be as simple as a buddy's house a couple of cities over. Right? That could be a bug out location. And this is, of course, all dependent on what your scenario is or what it is that's coming your way that you've got to deal with. So maybe that's going to affect the couple cities over as well. Well, now your buddy's place isn't going to work for you. But
That's right.
if it's a smaller localized thing, your buddy's place a couple cities over is going to work for you. You could look into something else. It may be where we touched on with Joan, where her neighbor's moving away. Maybe that person's moving a couple provinces away. Now you've got somebody you could maybe go to there. That's a little bit more elaborate. It's going to take you more time to get there. You have to plan things out a lot more in order to make that happen. But that could be a bug out location. It could be as simple as some crown land that's either close by or a little bit further away from you, but you've got a tent and you've got a vehicle, right?
Yep.
And this kind of segues into one of the topics here where you're not going to be comfortable anymore.
No,
right?
Definitely not.
Kiss that goodbye, right? But
yes,
these are all options that I find a lot of people get hung up on. I need that fancy cabin on 15 acres of land with the solar panels and the backup generator and the well and the outhouse and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You might not have that. If you've got it, great. That's a fantastic bug out location. Don't think that I'm saying that you don't need it, period. That's great if you've got it. But if you don't, think of the small things, think of the easy solutions, the tent, forest, the buddy's house, a couple towns over, right?
The hammock,
a
few skills,
the back of your car, right?
Yeah.
Well,
you've got options.
And it's funny that Eric mentions that, and he's absolutely right. We have a place we go to at our fish camp, which is on Crown land. It's out in the middle of nowhere.
Yep.
And don't think for 5 seconds that I haven't seriously thought that if something is going bad, and if somebody wants to find me and my friends know about that location, chances are you might find me there because we've been there. Right? I know what's there. I know what the limitations are.
Yep.
I know what, like I say, what's there, what's not. It's basically a cow path in the middle of nowhere. So I'm not going to have somebody sneaking up on me, and I'm not going to have, so do we stay in tents there? Yeah. Do we cook on a barbecue? Yeah. Do we have no cell service there? Yeah. Is that somewhere that's a good place to be when something bad happens? Friggin' right it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like we've done some recon on the place and mapped out who comes, who goes, who's around, what the landscape is like, what animals are around, where there might be some food and some water.
Yep.
Weird. It's almost like we've done everything that Frugal was talking about previously already.
Imagine that. Now, and to John's point, about the bug out location, I do have a cabin and all that, like Eric just mentioned. It sounds like a dream, but it's 7 hours from my current place where I'm temporarily here because I'm finding work and I'm looking for a place here. So 7 hours, man, can I expect to drive 7 hours uninterrupted in that kind of situation? Probably not. So, you know what? It's okay. I've adapted, and my survival mechanisms revolve around my vehicle now. So there's ways to adapt, even if you don't have a specific bug out location.
And people have said this. I think it's a good idea. Just something to think about when you're talking about it. A bug out location should be somewhere that you can get to with a tank of fuel in your vehicle. If there's no way to get fuel anymore, the power's out or whatever, you can't get fuel, you still need to be able to get there. And if where you want to go is more than one tank of fuel, you're really taking your chances.
You bet. That's not a very practicable. I mean, unless you have some serious skills. And even then, that's a physical journey that will be extremely difficult in that kind of circumstance.
Nope.
And John's got a great comment there that I could make a movie about that trip in a shit hit the fan scenario. And he's absolutely right. 7 hours is epic.
Oh yeah.
And in that kind of scenario, man, I don't know. I'd rather be able to have other options and be more mobile. And so that's what I've done. I've got other options. I've got a great network of people around here I can work with. I've got a good location where I'm at now. But either way, one thing is for sure, and Eric kind of started that very smooth segue earlier.
Look at that.
You
Episode 210 finally
we
got it.
Yeah. we get to number 4, which is that you can kiss convenience goodbye. And that's what I call it. So basically, to sum that up, point number 4 is that if it's convenient, it's probably traceable, and it's probably going to make you. So it's going to make you to the powers that be, to those that want to take everything you got, those that want to whatever to you, right? Do things to you that you don't want, right? That could be anything that is smart. Right? We talked about this in the cybersecurity episode we last did. You can't really rely and trust on those things during the pandemic. The cell phone service providers turned against us and provided all of our movement data to the government. So can you really trust your cell phones in that kind of situation? I don't know. I don't. I'd rather leave it behind. And that's the same for any other of your smart devices in your car. If you rely on your car's navigation systems, man, that's just if I was attacking this country, the first thing I would hit is our communication systems, because all of y'all with your vehicles and your nice GPS systems, you're not going anywhere. You're grounded, right? Unless you have good old paper maps and knowledge of routes and places already in your head, man, you're going to be on the back foot. So that's why I kiss convenience goodbye, right? Do you navigate? Do you know how to navigate with a map and compass? Do you have a portable GPS system? But a portable GPS can still be jammed from without, right? So you should have a compass. You should have a map. You should know how to use it. You should have tested how to use it. It's not good enough to know how it. You should test it. You don't know something till you test it. And this is a good one. This is a really good indicator from Kenzie here. He says, you know, you're Sears prepper if when the power goes out in your neighborhood, all the neighborhood's kids come over to your place to watch TV on generator power.
It's true.
Very true.
Yep. I like it.
So true.
Yep.
If you don't have a generator, man, you should have one.
Yep.
Make sure
this is the fun part of preparedness is probably 98 to 99% of the time you're dealing with the basics like this, power outages, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But now you've got power, and power's out, and you know, you can keep the kids entertained for a little while. But that's just a fun little side note. It's majority of this is the small little stuff that you can easily deal with.
Yes.
And then the last, 2% of the time is the shit at the fan periods. Right?
Absolutely. Everything we're talking about is really edge scenarios. The average individual will be able to get by with a generator about 20 20 or 30 different kinds of
Yep.
canned foods, so that if there's a week's worth of no access to stores, you can survive that with a little bit of variety. Have some food stores, have some first aid supplies on hand. TP, of course.
Of course, very important. Yes. If the pandemic taught us nothing. Yes.
Oh, but yes, you should consider that life will not be easy. And
Yeah.
so if you're not used to hardship and lack of convenience, psychologically, you're going to have a really hard time. So prepare.
Yep.
Yeah,
It's true.
Prepare accordingly. Don't rely on convenience. Know that it could be cut off any time during those times.
Yeah. Well, times are good. Absolutely enjoy the convenience because it's there. Right.
That's right.
But learn how to get by without it as well. Don't get
Correct.
to the point where if it disappears, you go, now what? What do I don't know what to do. Right. That's not good. That's not a good spot to be in.
The way I summed it up years ago when I saw that smartphones were transforming people
Mhm.
is that I would tell people that I'm in charge of the tool. It's not in charge of me.
Yep.
So treat it
True.
as a tool, right? Not a lifestyle, not a thing you live through. It's just a tool, right?
I like it.
That's what I think of it as.
I like it.
Yeah.
And I just realized that I pulled an Ian and I have numbered this episode 210 when it's 220. Apparently I'm the one that can't count this episode.
Nicely. And I accordingly did I put it 210?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
published
thought
it
I
as
put in
210.
220, but maybe I
You
put
did.
210.
Nope. No, Jeff was nice enough to fill in the beginning of the show notes here for today's
that's funny.
episode because I was running a little behind. And when I started up the stream, I put episode 210. So yeah, if you've listened this far, we're into about an hour. Correction, it's not 210, it's 220. I just gypped us from 10 episodes.
Well, you know what? I think I can actually. Oh no, I do have mine at 220.
Okay,
Oh,
good. So
good.
I'm the only one that messed up. I'll edit it later so everybody knows. And I
Well,
did say 220 at the beginning, but
That's not too big of a deal.
and for those of you saying who's Ian, exactly.
Yes. I've seen him once, I think.
Yep.
And just throwing a shout out there in the live chat. Joan NC got her wood stove installed this week.
Nice.
Well done.
Very nice.
Fantastic. How does it feel to
Tony,
have good old
She
wood
says,
heat?
now I need to learn how to build a fire. That's the easy part. Trust
Oh,
me.
that's the fun part.
That's
Yes.
just the easy part. You know,
Maybe I'll-
that having that, and I obviously I have a wood stove. That's my primary heating source. That's my and the sense of I don't even know how to word it, but just the sense of knowing that if something happens, I'm not worried.
Nope.
Is just it takes a big load off your mind in terms of being worried about because not only does the wood stove give you heat, it gives you an ability to warm up food or all that other stuff. You can put a big tub of water on there and warm it up and give yourself a warm bath. And there's so many other things just besides being able to stay warm that a wood stove provides you, that it's something that I would never be without.
It's definitely peace of mind. I love it. I love having a wood stove. I miss it when I'm here in the city. So we've kind of talked about the convenience thing. We talked about heat, talked about power and generators. And I think I can now kind of move on to my last part, which is number 5. And this is a big one. This is a really big one. I live my life with this one. And so here's number 5. Number 5 is be where the masses are not. And that's because the masses are really dumb, really, really dumb. And I'm going to go ahead here and probably annoy and insult a few people, but in the cities, you have a larger proportion of people who become the dumb masses during an emergency and during panic time. And it's a simple thing. Historically, there's a reason for it. People who come to the cities usually have a very specialized skill set. And having a very specialized skill set means that you can earn a living and survive in the city, where you have to pay a lot of money to live relative to the people who are out in the woods or out in the countryside. However, the lack of general skills means that your specialty skills fall short when you are not in the city, or when the city fails to provide what you need to survive. And that's when the city becomes a really dangerous place. Just go look at history. Wherever there are masses and there's a lack or a shortage of resources, man, things go nuts.
It is interesting what the mob mentality will do very quickly.
Yeah. Just bad traffic. I mean, just bad traffic drives people completely out of their minds. So when you mix in bad traffic with, well, that's the only place where there is gas in the city and we're all trying to reach it at the same time, or worse, that's the only place in the city that offers coffee, and all these people that have all this money to live in the city don't have a way to make coffee without their electricity, so they're all running to go to the local Tim Hortons or McDonald's, and your city turns into a nightmare.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Yeah.
Just a side note, I'm rather enjoying the banter in the live chat here that's going
great.
on. and I will say this and try to be polite about it and not make enemies, and I don't want to make enemies. And, Melissa says in the live chat, I'm assuming we're talking about the wood stove and that, and she says, we've been looking for something like that for natural gas. Why? What happens if you don't have the gas? Then what? For me, that's kind of the thing is, Gunny's mentioned it a couple times, is what happens if all of that stuff that you rely on isn't there? Do you have another way to back it up? And yep. I understand that, and I'm not trying to throw shade on anybody, but if you're relying on a product that somebody else has to provide to you, you're not 100%, I guess, on your own or able to go on your own. I'm not sure how to word that, but
you're not 100% self-sufficient. You're still relying on somebody else.
You're relying on somebody else to provide you that natural gas for what you need.
Yep. So. And working in the thought earlier of 98% of the time, that's going to be more than sufficient, and you're going to get through whatever it is you're riding through, and it'll be fine. But you get into that other area where all of a sudden that natural gas is gone.
Yep.
Now what, right? So great to have, great resource that's available while times are good, but having a backup for that backup, worth its weight in gold.
Very much so.
And don't get me wrong, I clearly understand that depending on where you live, your financial, all of that stuff, a wood stove isn't for everybody. I clearly understand that. I'm not saying that you're not less prepared because you don't have one or anything like that. It's just for me, it's just that independence of knowing that I'm not relying on somebody else for my needs.
And it's a great point to point out, because not everybody is going to say, natural gas is always going to be here, right? So not everyone's going to have that mindset of, well, what if the gas stops coming, right? A lot of people use the natural gas as their backup system and just assume it's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. What if it's not, right? It's always good to have that backup. Like example here, everything in my house is natural gas. Even the backup generator that runs the house if the power's out runs on natural gas, right? If that gas stops, I've got the fireplace here still that burns just regular wood, right? Doesn't need any kind of gas or any kind of system like that. Wood burning fireplace to keep the heat going in the wintertime. if we need it, and then I can cook on that if need be, or I just go and steal Jeff's wood stove down the road, right? So there's all
Correct.
kinds of different options, but it's
Correct.
good to put that seed in people's heads because not
Yeah.
everybody thinks about, well, yeah, the gas is just always going to be on. Well, what if it's not? Right?
Well, and here's a scenario where it's often not in a city, and it's more often than people think. If there's a fire in a house or a building nearby yours or in the same gas circuit as yours, guess what, friends?
Guess who's connected to you?
Yep. Guess who's losing gas too? Yeah, that's you too.
Yep.
So that's the thing about
Great
the
point.
city, right? That's the thing about living on a grid. You're part of something that is bigger than just you.
Yep.
It belongs to somebody else, and
And everybody's
just,
interconnected.
yeah, you're just on the receiving end of that chain.
Yep.
And so you're kind of
You're
last in
relying
line.
on everybody else to be smart and not do silly things to cause the rest of the system to crumble, right?
That's right. And we know people have Mondays and Fridays. So
This is true.
govern
Yes, they
yourselves
do.
accordingly.
Yes, they do. Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's why I say number 5 is be where the masses aren't. So
Yeah.
That's
And
my
that's
my
how-
5 quick ones, guys.
Yeah, and that ties in the kind of gray man theory too, right?
Yes.
Is just don't be seen, don't be, don't draw attention to yourself. You can still be attached to that gas line. You can still be attached to the grid if it's working. You can still be attached to whatever community resources you're attached to that everybody enjoys while times are good.
Totally.
And then and things kind of start to fall apart. Just realize that if one person buggers that up, have a backup that you maintain and that you control. And then the same, be where the masses aren't. So some big events going on, you shouldn't be the one rushing downtown to say, oh, I need to go get this, and this. Because guess what everybody else is doing? Same thing.
Same.
Right.
Exact-
So let them all battle the lines and battle the stores and battle the gas pumps. You can sit back, whether you're at home or if you've taken off, bugged out, or whatever you want to call it. You're already well ahead of everybody else, and you're where the masses are not, which is perfect.
Yeah, that's a big one. You don't need a lot of gear.
Nope.
Nope.
It's true.
A little bit of knowledge definitely helps.
Oh, I see some shade coming Jeff's way from Kanzi.
Yeah. But you know what? He's 100% right. I'm not a crazy prepper because I know which trees are coming down when I need them to come down. So
Yep.
I like it.
Brilliant.
This is good. The banter in the live chat this evening has been just absolutely fantastic.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I rather enjoy when we do episodes like this where there's banter between everybody that's watching. We
Yep.
can't get all the comments up, but we try to get most of them up if we can. It's always good to see everybody interacting with each other and helping each other out, or you know what, jumping in and chirping each other every once in a while.
Oh,
'Cause
yeah.
It just means that everyone's getting along.
Yeah, if we're definitely wrong, man, come and burn us.
Oh yeah. Oh
Yeah.
well, I'll take the criticism, no problem.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
It's good to keep us honest, right?
It is. It's good. No, I think that's a good list of things and some a good refresher on some of the basics, right? Of just bug in, bug out. What do I need? It's paint a little bit of a picture and just kind of a refresher on what most that are listening to the podcast now or that have been listening for a while probably already have in the back of their minds. But for those of you new as well, just a quick little build up for kind of where your mindset should be and give you some ideas and maybe some cues and some stuff to work on the next little while, because things are a little funny in the world right now. Not that they haven't been in years past, but that's why we're preppers, right?
Getting weird out there.
It sure is. Oh, anybody have any final thoughts on the main topic before we move into the podcast challenge? Crickets. All right.
no, I think Gunny's helped us get a long ways to just understanding what's going to happen or where or what's not going to happen. So you're not going to have that cell phone, you're not going to have that internet, you're not going to have that all that other stuff. So yep.
I like these back to basics episodes. They're fun, right? They kind of help refocus, re-energize, and kind of get you back to okay, what do I realistically have to focus on here, and away from some of the funner episodes that we touch on, but some of the deep divey rabbit hole kind of episodes, right? Which this one totally could have gone that way.
Oh, we
But,
could have for sure.
Yeah, we kept it on the rails here and kept it pretty basic because I like the
Mhm.
return to basics episodes. They're fun to do every once in a while. With that, let's move into the podcast challenge then. So your challenge for this episode: look into a possible bug out location and how to get there. You got to start somewhere, right?
Good one.
All right.
Yep. And as we've said, it can be a friend's house, it could be crown land somewhere, it could be the options. Basically, in my opinion, the options are limitless,
Yep.
except for how you can get there. Like I said, if it's within a tank of fuel in your vehicle, or some way to make another way or another option of how to get there, another means of a vehicle. Like I said, a snowmobile in the winter, a dirt bike, something like that. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours and hours away. It just needs to be somewhere, as Gunny says, away from the masses.
Exactly. Or at least somewhere that you can fade in and not be seen.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
All right. You got a weather blurb, Jeff?
Yeah, I do, sort of. So I didn't mention it last week because it really wasn't anything that was on the radar or we needed to be concerned about. There was a tropical storm in the Pacific, and basically all of the forecasters were not even talking about it because it was going to be nothing more than that. It was a tropical storm. All of the big people like NOAA and the National Hurricane Center and all that were like, yeah, okay, it's going to be, and it exploded. It encountered a unusually warm pocket of water in the Pacific. Usually you don't get a lot of major hurricanes that hit the west coast of the Pacific because the water generally isn't warm enough. Basically, to fire up or to intensify a tornado or a hurricane, you need water that's basically 80 degrees or higher. So anyways, this storm encountered, as I said, an unusually warm pocket of water. It was actually 88 degrees. That's basically like throwing gasoline on a fire. It caused that storm to intensify like no other storm in history. It went from a tropical storm to a Category 5 hurricane in 24 hours. That is literally unheard of. The storm made landfall near Acapulco. It caused extensive damage. So far, there's 43 deaths. There will probably be more because people just didn't evacuate. Any other time, there's a hurricane that's going to hit Florida or it's going to hit Louisiana, you get 2, 3, sometimes 4 days of notice. They had nothing until about 5 hours before the storm was going to hit, when everybody went, holy F, what just happened here? And, like I say, it's just one of those things that happened, and you can't predict it, but it sadly is what it is. So on the weather side for kind of north of the border, people are, kind of around the border area. So we have a low pressure system developing in the U.S., and it's going to pump a lot of Gulf moisture north of the border, setting up the opportunity for our first dose of accumulating snow, specifically around southern Quebec. Precipitation will begin overnight tonight into tomorrow, possibly even into Tuesday. Temperatures will be at or below freezing in many locations, so most of this precipitation will be snow. You're asking how much? Quebec itself, Quebec City, 5 to 10 centimeters. Drummondville, 5 to 10 centimeters. St. George, so the southern tip of Quebec, 10 to 15 centimeters. You start moving away to the fringes, Montreal, 1 to 3. Gatineau's basically going to get a dusting. up into the Saguenays, you're into another 5 to 10. So it is that time of year. In Ontario now, they're talking about the potential for snow squalls in the next couple of days. I don't really have the numbers yet as to what's going to hit. I'll update Discord when things kind of more fall into place. But there are areas in the Muskokas and in the traditional snow belts that could be looking at 15 centimeters over the next 2 to 3 days. So, it is that time of year, and just be wary of the travel conditions and the weather conditions. I think I mentioned it in the last podcast. If I didn't, now's the time to get your snow tires on. If you go with snow tires, which you really should, because all seasons are not all seasons. They're 3 seasons. Get your snow tires on now before everybody else wants to get them on.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. So, deal of the week. I just grabbed this real quick from one of our favorite sites, Princess Auto. They've got a 2-inch by 20-foot, 10,000-pound tow strap on sale for $4.44. So, if you're going to be getting into that bug out location and you might need somebody to pull you out of something, might be worth spending the $4 and change. All right. Anybody got any shout outs?
I'm going to give a shout out to Kanzi here. I am definitely a prepper because I do spend my time off and my vacation time at my cabin, and that's where I spend my time. So, yep, I guess I'm officially a prepper.
Welcome to the club.
Thanks, Kanzi.
Awesome.
Kanzi? I don't know if I'm saying it right.
Uh-oh, he's hitting me now.
Oh, it's about time. You
give him a
need to
shout
go.
out too here. Says, Eric Pepper, if keys SHTF are worn off his laptop's keyboard. Well done. Well done.
Nice.
Joke's on you. I've got a desktop. Awesome. Well, with that, I'll bring episode number 220, not 210, the Canadian Prepper Podcast, to an end. You can find the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, or of course your favorite podcast app. Please help us out. Submit a review. It does help other people find us and does the fun algorithm thing too.
We do record these shows live on YouTube or Facebook if you must. If you want an early peek at the shows, please subscribe to the YouTube channel Canadian Prepper Podcast and click the notifications tab. That gives you alerts when we're going live. And you can find me, the Frugal Gunny, on YouTube, Rumble, Facebook, Instagram, and the CPP Discord.
And if you're looking for me, you can reach me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. And if I pay Eric enough money, he'll forward it to me. And I'm also obviously frequently on our Discord channel.
And for those of you asking, I threw a link in the chat here for the Discord. Please check out Rapid Survival, rapidsurvival.com. You can get me there on the live chat. You can also email me at feedback@prepperpodcast.ca. So thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prepared, stay safe,
and keep learning.